Hi everyone. I hope you all are doing good. Um, yeah. So today I'm giving a lecture about table reading and just some basic listening and responding exercises that you can do. Um, and just I'm going to talk about what table reading is and the protocol behind it and what you should expect from a table read. So first off, um, the goal of a table read is to just sit down and read the play with the actors that have been cast and the director. And usually there's either a stage manager or some kind of managerial person there just to be seen and be like, hi, I'm so and so, and I'm going to be working with you for a long time. So yeah, that's usually the people that are there. Um, so the first thing in a table read that you should do is just drive the language, which basically just means you should just read the script, read the text, and not really worry about like pausing too much or being really like philosophical about it. Just getting right in there and reading the text and going through it and see what happens. Because you're going to be there for a long time. Usually table reads are like, if it's a 2 hour play, it takes 2 hours to read, obviously. And then obviously you have a break and discussion and like all of that stuff. So you're going to be there for a large chunk of time. So if everybody keeps pausing and taking their own time to like analyze their situation, it's going to take hours. So just drive the language, read the text, be there for what it is. And yeah. The second thing you should do is, as an actor, you need to be listening and responding constantly, which basically just means if you're in a scene with another actor, even at a table read, when you're not off script, you're constantly like in the book and stuff like that. And so for some people, it's the first time they're hearing the words aloud. You still need to be listening to the other actors and responding what's appropriate to what they're giving you. Which basically means like just like being very aware, not trying to like pre-plan anything or like say I'm going to say this line exactly like this because that's how I interpret it. You're going to just like sit and you're going to listen and you're going to take what they give you and respond accordingly, which is basically actors' jobs is to do that at all times. And I'm going to give you, after I finish the protocol, a little exercise to do with your partners about that. So yeah. The next thing you should be doing just constantly is internalizing the initial script analysis that you've already done. So before you even sit down for a table read, you should have read the script, which is obvious. You auditioned for this in the real world. You would audition for a play, you should read it. You should have basic, who am I, where am I, when is it, like all of those Uta Hagen things, just to have your circumstances and your characterization down. So as you're reading the script and as these new elements of these people, these other actors who are playing people that you have relationships with, people that you don't have relationships with, whatever, you can know your circumstances and your characterization enough that when you're reading through it, it's not a surprise or it's not whatever, and you can actually like start to really like suss out like, how do I feel about this? Like, when this happens, how do I feel about this person? Because of this, because of so and so, and because of where I came from, and like stuff like that. So you should always have just be thinking about that internally, and not trying to like show it. I said before with like the listening and responding, not pre-planning like this is how I feel, so this is how I'm gonna react, but it's more of just oh okay, because of this I feel about this. Kind of makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, just like constantly have that running script in your head, the constant internal monologue of like all of that jargon. So the fourth thing is you should make big acting choices. A lot of people think that if you're in a table read, you should read it flat. And that's not... that's, like, some people do that, and that's interesting. But the director is there basically to hear your take on your character. And even if it's, like, you just reacting, and you can do this a lot of ways. You can do it with tempo, you can do it with enunciation, you can do it with like pauses, but like, you know what I mean, like within your own right pauses. And you can just that's how you interpret it, and that's how you make big acting choices, and that's yep. But the director basically like will listen to that. The table read's just like a first time through, and if they see something that they like, they could be like, oh, that's cool, I never thought of it that way. But if you're not making acting choices and you're just reading it flat, then it's kind of like, it's not reading into the character, and it's not fully using the characterization. So, yeah, make big acting choices. If they don't like it, if the director doesn't like it, they will say something to you when you're in rehearsals. But this is kind of the time to just, like, make the choice, and if it flops, it flops, and no harm done. Yeah. So the next thing is make discoveries. So as you're reading, you can contextually be like, oh my gosh, this character found out this information about this. That's a discovery for your character. You can also have your own self-discoveries of, if you're reading through and all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, I never thought about that, or that's new information, or what if this. That's discoveries that you should be making, obviously, because you should, I think someone said, like, you should read a script, like, 10 times before you really, like, get all of the nuances and all of the, like, little, like, things that authors put in it, and, like, little, like, relationship things and stuff like that. So, you should be constantly making discoveries during the table read, and you can, like, mark them down, you can underline them, you can do whatever, and be like, oh, that's different, that's not what I first thought it was when I first read it, but now I think of it like this. So, that's always good to be doing. So this is after you're done with the table read, like, you've read all the way through. You should always discuss the piece, and that's kind of the director is going to kind of facilitate that discussion. But you can always use different lenses. Like, you can look at the entire context by, like, history, like, what's going on at that time period. Like, say if it's in, like, the 80s, there was a lot of, like, social and, like, economic things that were going on that may affect either characters because of, like, the certain job that they have, or it could just affect the entire storyline, and, like, that's really important to, like, understand, like, if you're in different time periods, understanding, like, what's going on or what was going on to affect the characters. You can also talk about characterization, so, like, that's relationships, circumstances, like, all of that stuff. A lot of times during table reads, if people have very intense relationships or very close relationships that are important, sometimes the directors will be like, okay, you two go off that way and discuss your entire backstory, which is fun because then you can talk about it, and it's like a whole, it's interesting for you to, like, talk about your relationships with other people. That's really fun. Yeah, and it's just talking about all of the stuff that would affect relationships and stuff like that. Another thing that you can discuss is psychology. It's really interesting to, like, think of, like, why people do the certain things they do, especially if they're fictional characters. So you can really think about, like, mentally, how did a situation affect somebody, or how does this affect this person because of certain things that happened in the past, and, like, that may be a connection that you didn't think about with the character, of, like, if you're playing, like, a really, like, mean person, this is always, like, a thing that I've found of, like, if you're playing this really mean person, like, why are they like that? Like, what happened? Or, like, are they just like that naturally? Like, or, like, is there some kind of deeper situation going on? And then that ties into empathy, and then you can, like, just keep going, and that's a really interesting discussion to have of, like, why people act a certain way they do through the lens of psychology. Yeah. So that's, like, all of the, like, really, really big things that happen during table reading, and things that you should, like, look at and be ready to do and stuff like that as an actor. Josh put this really funny thing in it that I laughed at, which was bring snacks. Because you are with these people for a long time. Because if you're reading a 2-hour play and discussing it, that could be upwards of, like, 4 hours, 4.5 hours with a break. And so if you have snacks, it's just kind of a nice thing to do. But yeah, so that was a funny thing that I just want to throw in there. It's also, he said, don't give a big speech at the top, because again, you're going to be there for a long time, and you just kind of want to get right in it and start doing the work, instead of just talking about your life stories and talking about your intentions and stuff like that. Like, we'll learn that eventually. Like, we don't need to do it at the table read. So don't make a really big speech. There shouldn't be really interjections in the table read, and that goes back to just prior to the language. Like, just go through the text as it is, and don't try to interject, like, thoughts or questions or stuff like that. You can save them for during the discussion, but don't try to interject during it. And the last thing is just be respectful of other actors. Whenever you're doing table reading, you don't know people's interpretations, you don't know people's backgrounds, you don't know a lot of things, so it should be kind of a judgment-free zone when it comes to how people are portraying their characters and stuff like that, and just being respectful of, like, that's them, that's not my decision, that's not my say, and, like, how they do that. So, yeah, that's just a respect thing. Also respecting the director, respecting their views, respecting where they come from. Yeah, so that's just, like, a big thing of overall. So yeah, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is basically just a little, like, listening, responding exercise that you guys can do with your partners when you have your sit down time with them. It's called a vent, and it's going to be really weird for me to explain it with nobody around, but I'm going to try. So basically the idea of it is you have person A and person B, and person A is going to choose an event that they're going to go to, and they're going to bring something. So say that I'm person A and I want to go to a circus. Just want to go to a circus. So, and I want to bring a balloon to a circus. So I'm going to say, I'm going to bring a balloon to the circus. Cool. And person B has to respond by saying that they're going to bring something else to that event. So they could bring, say, I want to bring candy to the circus. Yeah? So this is a whole listening and responding exercise, because someone is setting up a situation and a circumstance and bringing something that makes sense to that circumstance and that event, right? Person B then has to react and respond basically to that circumstance, and they can't change it, and they just have to bring something that makes sense to that event, right? So I can't bring, like, a dinosaur, like a full dinosaur, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, to a circus, because that doesn't make sense. That doesn't realistically make sense. So yeah, so it's just a basic back and forth. You can try it with different events. You can try it with people switching the event. You can say, like, okay, stop, and then person B would go and pick an event. But try not to pre-plan it. Try just to sit and listen and then make something happen. Okay? Don't be like, what's at a circus? Oh God, what's at a circus? Okay, peanuts. No, just listen, respond, because they may take you in a whole different direction and make you think of something that you wouldn't have thought of. So that's the idea of it. So yeah, so that's the end of this. I hope everybody understands what table reading is and the expectations of it. And I hope everyone tries the event thing when they meet with their partners. And I just am gonna reiterate some due dates for you. So you should have already done the first part of your script analysis. That was due Friday. You should have your partner meeting time set up, because you should go through that by when it's due, which is Wednesday, April 1st, by the end of the day. And everything should be typed up and put in Moodle by the end of the day, on Wednesday. So yeah, if you have any questions or any, like, concerns, or you're confused about anything, you can email me or Josh. We'll help you. Yeah, and thank you for listening and coming to class. Bye, hope you have a good day.